If you'd like to learn how to grow a ladder after the player buys it from the shop, allowing them to get to the next level, keep watching and I'll show you exactly how to do it. Welcome to Roblox Snippets. Now there's a few moving parts in this video, and to begin with we will build the items that we need and then we'll look at the coding. So our first job, since we want to create a wall for the player to climb up, we'll come up and create a part in the workspace. And then you can change this. Now I made a brick wall before, so let's come down and pick a brick type color, and then in the material and its properties we can come up the top and click on brick, and you can make this whatever you like. And the other thing that we want to make sure, since it's a wall, is that it is anchored and can collide is on. And then we can go ahead and scale this, and the most important thing is to make the wall ensure that it's high enough where the player cannot jump up on top of it, because that's the point of the wall, is to stop people moving beyond where you want them to go. Alright, so imagine this is level 2 up on top of this wall and the player wants to get up on top of the wall to continue. Right, now at the beginning of the video we also had a shop part. Now we won't do the GUI or anything in it, but we will create the part here to represent the shop. So come up and create a part, and we'll change this to shop part, and we'll simply make this, you can make it a box, and you can put in, make it look a little bit like a shop counter if you like, and change its color to something you like. And we'll come down and change its to be anchored, whoops, wrong one, anchored as well. And I might just move him over here a little bit, over here, and let's say I'll just rotate it around a bit. You don't really need to do that, but it looks nice. Okay, so we've got these two items at the moment, a shop part and our wall, which I'll just change to say wall. Alright, now let's make a ladder that will allow the player to climb up. Now it's a little bit false to say that the ladder lets them climb up. We actually use a special part in Roblox called a truss part. So in order to get access to that, if you come up to part up the top and click on the little arrow drop down, then underneath here you won't find it. So sorry about that. Right, if you come over to the workspace and click on the plus sign, in the search box here, if you click in the search and start typing truss, you'll see this truss part that appears. Alright, so when you find that, left click on it and it will make this little hollow item appear in the workspace, and it's called truss over here. So let's move it down to the bottom of our wall once you have it, and just roughly sort of near the wall is good to start with. Alright, now this is a bit unique. When we, if we come down through the properties just very quickly, you'll see that it's got all the other normal sort of properties that we want, and we want to make it anchored so that it stays where we put it, and everything else can stay the same. Then we'll make this so that it, we'll scale it, so come up to scale, and scale the part so that it is the same height as our wall. A little bit taller or shorter is fine. Okay, now if you were to run the game now, you would find that your player will climb straight up here and onto the top. Alright, so that is the thing that is going to let us, or our players, and enable our players to climb up. Now you are limited in how much you can scale the trusses. For example, I can't really make that any smaller than the size that it is against the wall. If we have a look in here, the size at the moment is around 2 by, well, 14 high and 2, so 2 by 2. However, if you want it to be closer to the wall, you can simply take the part and move it back inside the wall. The player only needs to make contact with this part of the truss and that will work fine. Right, and we'll just check down the bottom. So that is our truss part in here. Alright, now we'll make the part that the players will see, because we're going to hide that truss part and we're going to make a ladder. So once again, in the workspace, come in and create a part here. Alright, and we'll come down and change its size, and we'll make it 1 by 1 by 1 to start with, and we will duplicate, actually we'll change this to the color that you want it to be. So if you want to make it a brown type of ladder or any other sort of color, I'll make mine a bit lighter so it stands out against the wall, but we'll make it a wooden type color, so I might pick wood down here. And we'll also want to anchor this part, so come down and click on anchored. So once you've got the color and everything picked that you like, then we can make the parts of the ladder. So we'll make the two struts that go up first, and since we're going to make it over near the wall to make it the same height, let's move it over near the wall, and then come up to your scale tool and we'll scale that up to the top. Okay, so it can be level or a bit higher if you like, probably a bit higher is good. Okay, that's one side of the ladder, and we'll call this a strut, or you could call it side, whatever you like. And then we're going to duplicate that, so right click on it and duplicate, and take our move tool and move it over, whoops, wrong one, take our strut and move it over till it's about wide enough where you think it looks good. Okay, now we'll take another copy of our strut, so duplicate that, and we'll just move it forward, and we're going to rotate it. So click on rotate, and we'll rotate it 90 degrees around like this, and then we can move it back to our two struts here. Right, so once it's sort of lined up like this through, then you can come in and scale it. Now if you hold down shift when you've done this and then scale, you'll scale both or the whole thing at the same time. Alright, so we don't really want to do that. However, let's just bring this in and let it overhang the sides a little bit, just to give it a bit more character if you like. And we'll call this a rung. It's not super important, but sometimes you might get confused about which piece is which. And now we want to duplicate this a couple of times, or a few times, in order to make the rung. So move this one perhaps down near the bottom, and then duplicate it again, Right, and move that up there. And then we probably can take this first rung and that one and the one down the bottom, and if we right click and duplicate those and then move them all up, we can finish our ladder. And probably that's probably good. And this one at the top, we probably don't need that, so let's delete that one. Alright, so you'll get a ladder that looks something like this. Now, to make it easier to work with, since we're going to use the Tween service to make this grow, we are actually going to turn this into one part. Alright, so in order to do that, we want to select all of the parts of our ladder that we just created. So, and don't get any of the others involved, such as your wall. Alright, so all of the parts of the ladder. And then what we want to do is come up to solid modeling up the top here on the drop down, and we want to click on union. Alright, so click on union, and you should find that you get one part now up here, which we can call ladder, and it will be, you can move that around as one part, and that will make it much easier for us to scale this from very low up to very high. So now we have two parts to our ladder here. We have our ladder union that we just made here, and we also have our truss down here. So if you click on the ladder part and then Command or Control and then click on the truss, then what we can do is right click on this and group them together as a model. So once they're in a model, you can see they become one model that we can move around and access. So we can call this our ladder model. And you can move those individual parts now to line them up. So we'll take our ladder and move it over so that it's near our truss. and line it up so you can even move it back into the wall a little bit if you wish. Right, and so it's level with the ground. And mine's a little bit too far over, so let's move him over there. Alright, so the truss is in the middle. Now the truss part, we don't need to see that, so left click on the truss part and come down to its properties, and we're just going to change its transparency to be 1 so that it disappears. And now we have our ladder. Now that we've built everything that we need in our project, we can have a think about what we're going to do. So what's going to happen is this ladder over here and the truss will be hidden when the game or the project starts, and we're going to give the player 1 gold that they're going to run up to this shop part here and spend it gold when they touch it, and that will let them purchase access to level 2 and make the ladder grow up this way. Now it's a little bit tricky in terms of not allowing the player to climb up this truss part in here, and we're going to deal with that in some scripts. So like I said, the first thing or one of the things is that we want to give our player some gold. So we'll come over to Server Script Service and click on plus, and we'll add a script, and this will be our main script. And this will happen for all players. Now the way we're doing this project at the moment, by the way, is if the first player or one player comes in and does this and makes the ladder grow, it's going to grow for everybody because it's on the server. And if you wanted to use this in your project, then you would do this as a local ladder on their client, so that it only happened for that player when they bought at the shop, and that way they could climb up but nobody else could. And I do cover that in some other videos that you can watch. And if you wanted to subscribe to the channel, I have lots and lots of things on my channel that I think you might find useful. But for now, let's have a look at our main script. And in here, we're going to type in game.players and .player added. And when that happens, we want to connect a function and pass in player. And then we'll get the character as well. We don't really need it, but we'll say player.character added and connect function and pass in the character. So it should look something like this. I'll just get rid of these couple of windows here. Alright, we're going to set up a leader stats folder that will hold our gold and will display it on the screen for us. So we'll call this leader stats and we'll create a folder, so instance.new, and then in inverted commas type in folder, and we will parent this. This is one way to parent this to the player. Add a comma and then type player. Player. Can't type today. Because we're passing it in up here, so for each player they will get their own folder. We need to name our folder, so leaderstats.name equals, and it must be called leaderstats. Alright, when you name it here, so this over here could be called anything you like. You could call this cucumber or banana, but this part in here needs to be leaderstats, as it's a special name that Roblox makes use of. So that will give each player their own folder. Now we want the gold value to put in it, so we'll say local player gold and instance.new, and we'll make this a number value. And once again, we'll parent this now to the leader stats folder. That's where we want to store it. And player gold. Oh, I'm sorry, I'm not typing very well. Name, and this will be displayed on the screen, so we'll simply call this gold. And now we need to set a value, so player gold dot value, and initially we'll set this to 0. Alright, even though the player will require 1 gold in order to buy the ladder, but we'll do a test with that very shortly. So your script should look something like this. Alright, now that we've set our player up with that value, the next thing that we want to do is we'll deal with the shop script over here to get that out of the way. Alright, so I'll just bring up my properties window here, and So I'll find my shop part over here in the Explorer, click on plus and add a script, and let's change this to be shop script. And we'll get rid of the hello world, and we're good to go. So what we want to happen here is when the player touches the shop part, we want to access their gold and make a check to see if they've got enough to make a purchase. Otherwise we'll give them a message. Alright, so the first thing we'll do is create a variable for the shop itself, which will be equal to script.parent. Alright, and we'll create a debounce value. So db equals true. Now this lets us control our script, or how often that it runs, and you'll see how that is made use of in just a minute. As I said, when the player touches this part, so we use the touch event. So we say shop.touched, that's the event, and when that event is triggered, we want to add a colon and connect a function to it, and we need to pass in a parameter here, and I add the parameter of hit. This could be anything you want to. However, this represents which part of the character is, or player is, touching the shop, and then we need to work out if that is part of a player. Okay, now in this case we don't need to know the character, so we'll just get the player. Alright, now if you find that concept of player and character confusing, I've got a video on that, and you can watch that video or subscribe, and I talk about it in lots of different videos, and yeah, if you watch that video you'll get a better idea. However, we're going to get our player here, so a local player equals game dot players, and we're going to get the player from the character. So the character is running around in the workspace. Okay, that's the representation of our player, and the player is where all of your account information and things like that is held, that tells us who you are. All right, and the way we do that to get the character is to say hit.parent. All right, so if this is the character's arm that hits the shop part, then its parent is the character, takes care of this, and then we look in all the players in the game with this character name over here, and that gives us the player. Alright, so hopefully that makes sense. Alright, now with that information we can now write a conditional statement. So we can say if player and db then. What this does is it checks, so as long as it's a player and db is set to true, it will run any code inside of here. When we do this, we immediately set db to be equal to false, because we want the code to run, and then we want to limit it. So towards the end of the script, we type in task.wait of say 2 seconds, and then we set db back to true. So this effectively lets this script run every 2 seconds. Okay. Now inside of here, now that we know that we have a player, we can access their leader stats folder. So local, and we'll call this player stats, right, equals player, and then we add a colon and wait for child, right, leader stats. Now we use wait for child here for folders in particular, because they may not have loaded when the player runs onto this, and this helps to stop errors. Once we have that folder, we want to look inside it for the player gold value, so p stats, and we should be able to just put in here gold, okay, because that is the name that we gave it over here, so it must be exactly the same, capitals and everything, or it won't work. Right, now next we want to decide, has the player got enough gold in order to make a purchase. So we're going to say if player gold dot value is greater than or equal to 1, then we're going to let them make a purchase. Now you could obviously set this to whatever amount you wanted it to be, however, just for demonstration we'll use 1. Right, now we can make a comment there, so 2 dashes, and say let the player make a purchase. Now if they don't, so we can say else, so if they don't have enough, say player has no cash. And we can just give them a message, but we'll give them a warning message and say you you don't have any money. Right, now you could, instead of using print messages, create a GUI that lets you put that up on the screen. And once again, that's covered in some of my other videos. Alright, let's, under here now, cover what happens when the player makes a purchase. So the first thing we're going to do is take their money off them. Alright, so we'll just come over here, tab in there. Alright, so, whoops, player gold.value, and we'll say minus equals 1. So this is a shortcut for writing player gold value equals player gold value minus 1. So minus equals 1, we'll just take 1 off of this. Now how do we make the ladder grow? Alright, so what we're going to do is we're going to make use of an attribute, and we're going to create it at the same time here as they make the purchase. We do this, well actually before we do that we'll need to put the, we might put the attribute in the ladder here in the workspace. Okay, just for the time being, let's bring up our Explorer, and I'd like you to come over and click on the ladder part, or actually the ladder model. We'll put it in the model, so click on the model, and then in its properties scroll right down the very bottom and you'll find attributes. Go ahead and click on the plus there and it'll bring up this little screen here, and we are going to create an attribute that says owns ladder. Oops, ladder. So make sure you when you type this in, you take note of exactly how it's spelt with capitals, etc. You can make it however you like, but we're going to use it in code, and if it's not right, it won't work. And in this particular case, we're going to make this a Boolean. So Boolean, and click on Save. And down here you'll see we have a checkbox. So if it's unchecked, that is false, and if it's checked, it is true. Right, so inside of here, let's come back to our shop script. Let's create a variable up the top of our shop script here. So local ladder, we'll just call it ladder, okay? And that will be workspace.ladder model. And that will give us access to the model where we can now access this attribute. So down here, we're going to say ladder, right, colon get, actually we'll say set. We're going to change that attribute. So we're going to say ladder set attribute, and then we type in the name. So when you open the inverted commas, you should see it pop up. So it's already accessing this, and just hit enter. And when you set the attribute, you add a comma and change it to whatever you want to change it to. In this case, it will be true. So the player will now own a ladder. Okay, let's click on File and Save, and we'll have a quick play just to test those couple of things so far. Alright, so play. So I'm all loaded in the game. Now if I just run over to where our ladder is at the moment, we haven't changed anything there, so you should be able to climb up and test your ladder and make sure you can get up the top. On the screen over here you'll see that you should have your character name with gold 0. Now remember, this is costing 1 gold in order to purchase something, so when we touch the shop we get this error down the bottom here. Okay, so our script is working correctly. Let's stop the game and now change our main script. Change our value in here to 1 or more, so let's say we give them 2 gold or whatever you like, and you can click on Save and we'll play again. Alright, this time I've loaded in and you can see I have 2 gold over here, and if I come over to the shop and run into it, we don't get a message, which we could put in the script. However, if we come into the workspace and click on our ladder model, and down the bottom while the game is running, you'll see it has become checked, which means the player now owns a ladder, and that is how we're going to trigger the growth of our ladder very shortly. Alright, let's click on stop. And in our script here, we can add a print in here. So we can say print, you bought a ladder. Okay, and we'll just save that and come back and look at our workspace. Now the last thing that we're going to cover is dealing with making our ladder grow and stopping the player from actually just being able to run up the truss even if they can't see it. Alright, so that is... So to run the tween on our ladder, come over to our ladder model in the Explorer window and click on the plus next to the model, and we'll add a script into the model, and let's call this our ladder script, and we are good to go. Alright, so what we're going to do is create a tween. Now a tween takes a little bit of information, so we'll create a comment up the top here. So tween ladder model, and when we're actually just going to tween not the entire model but just this ladder part in here. We need some variables though to work with, and the first one we'll create is local TS, short for tween service, which will be equal to game, and then colon get service tween service. Alright, so a tween, if you've never used one before, takes some properties of whatever it is you're working with and then smoothly moves or changes that part to a new sort of destination, and it does it smoothly. Okay, and you'll see how it works, and it's a very good thing to use. Alright, now we want to make use of this up the top here in our model. You remember down here in our attributes, we want to get access to this down the bottom here, so this attribute. So let's create a variable for that, owns ladder, and we'll say, now the script is in here, so we can say script dot parent and then a colon get attribute owns ladder, and that will get us this. Now this will only happen when the script runs, so it will be false, and we need a way that will let us keep checking. Now there's a couple of ways to do it. In this case we are just going to use a wait statement in a loop down below. However, you could make use of the run service as well, and I'll just get rid of these screens here at the moment. Right, let's keep creating our variables. So local, now the actual ladder part, so ladder be equal to script dot parent dot ladder. Right, remember that the script is in the model here, so we need to go up to the model and then back down to other parts, and we need our truss, so truss equals script dot parent dot truss, and that is all the variables that we need. So a tween makes use of 3 bits of information, so I'd like you to drop down a couple of lines, and we're going to type in here local and then tween equals tween service with a colon and then create, and when you hit enter it's going to ask you for some information inside these brackets. The first part is the instance up the top, so in this case we're working with the ladder, so you can go ahead and type in ladder in here and then add a comma. Now the next part is tween info, and we haven't created that yet, but we'll create a parameter for it and just call it info, and then click on the comma, and now it's asking for what properties do you want to change when you tween. So this is the goal, or where you want your part to get to, so let's type in here goal. Right, now these things don't exist yet, but we'll create them now, but this is what a tween is made out of. So now up above this, the 2 things that we're going to work with, we're going to deal with the goal first, and what we want to do, if we look in the workspace view here, is we want to have this ladder down very small, and we want to change its size and also its position, because when you change the size of something you also change its position vertically. So back in our ladder script here, how our ladder here is at the moment is where it will finish. Alright, so put a comment here, and we're going to say ladder, or actually we'll say end. Alright, and I'd like you to, next to this, type position, and then a couple of spaces, size, with a colon next to it. Now what we want to do is come over to our ladder in our Explorer window here and click it, and down in its properties you'll find its size. So I'd like you to click in there and right click, you can right click, copy and paste it, so we'll just copy it and we're going to put it in here for the size. Right, and for its position, which is just below, we're going to left click in this box, and you can right click here, copy, and put its position in here. Okay, so we've got 2 bits of information. Now where it's going to start, we'll create that now. So on the next line down, add another comment that says start, right, with position, and then move over a bit and say size. Now we'll go and create that. So let's come into the workspace, and we want to take our ladder, make sure it's selected, come up to our scale tool, and let's scale our ladder down as small as it will go. Alright, so that it's flat on the ground. And if you click off it, you'll see it's just like a dot on the ground here at the moment. Okay? Now that we've done that, if we come back in to our ladder script and click on that ladder part again, let's come down and get now the size. Alright, so left click, and we can say right click on this and copy it, and this is our starting position, or starting size, sorry, so we'll put it over here, and we also want to grab its starting position. Alright, so copy that and paste it in here. Okay, so you should have both of those pieces of information there like this. Now we can make use of that information inside of our script. So just below this, make a bit of room, and we're going to create a table that will hold this information for us. So let's type local goal, okay, because remember this is what we're using down here, and then we can say equals, and then just a set of curly brackets. And we're going to add these 2 properties into this using our dot syntax over here. So we say goal dot size, right, equals, and then we need to say vector3 dot new, and inside of here this is the end position, end size that we want to get here. So come up here and copy that and put it inside of the brackets, and then drop down here, and we're going to say goal dot position, right, equals, and our end position, so this one here, copy that, okay, and remember we need to say vector3 dot new and paste that inside of here. Right, so that's taken care of our goal over here. And the last thing is this info, and this is how the Tween will behave. So we'll put that actually just up above where we've done our comments, and we do that by saying local info equals and tween info dot new. And when you do this, you will see all of these things that it's asking, okay? And the first one is the times. Now you can hit enter to make this easier to read. I'll just click off here. The first one is time, however. So we're going to say we'll make it last for 2.5 seconds. That's how long it'll take for our tween to run. And then a comma, and you'll move along here, easing style. Okay, and we'll hit enter. Type in enum, okay, dot easing style, and we will make this linear. Now you can have a play with any of these and try them out for yourself, but for now let's choose linear. Add a comma, drop down one line. The next one is the easing direction. Okay, it's showing you here which one we're on at the moment. So we say enum.easing direction, pick it out of the list, and equals, actually we'll just say dot in out. And once again, you can try those others and see if you like any of those, comma. This next one is the repeat number. Now, if you don't wish this to repeat at all, which we don't, then you can simply set this to 0. If you wanted this to repeat over and over, you would set it to -1. But in our case, we'll just add 0. And the last one, does it reverse? Do you want it to go back the other way? And we don't want it, so true or false, and we just type in here false. Okay. So if you've got all of those in there, you can come back and look at those closer. If you for example, type here or click here, you'll see what these are about, and you can have a play around with them. Now with that, we have everything we need to play our tween or make it work. So now what remains is that we want to make sure that the player owns the ladder, and when they do, we're going to set the actual truss part so that they can collide with it. Now we haven't changed that yet, so come back into our workspace and come up to view, open this up if you don't have it yet, here, so our truss part here. I'd like you to scroll down into its properties and find can collide and uncheck it so that it is unchecked, false, and that will stop the player being able to run up here until they actually have paid for the ladder. Okay, so once you've unchecked can collide, we'll come back into our ladder script, and we just need a couple more lines to finish this off. Alright, let's put down here tween. So this is our finished tween, and to play a tween you add a colon and simply type in play, and that's all that is required, and that will make the ladder grow. Now remember our truss, we want to set the can collide to true, so truss.can collide will be equal to true. And the very last thing we need to do is we're going to put in here a repeat or a loop that will continuously check for us whether or not the player actually owns a ladder. And we do that by saying repeat, right, and task.wait with nothing inside of it, so it would run fairly quickly, and then until, and we're going to say our script. We should be able to actually use that owns ladder. Now I think I set up the top here. We already had this, so in actual fact I think what we'll do is just use this line rather than this variable, and that should be a little bit more accurate. So instead of using the variable here, we'll type in script.parent and then get attribute and owns ladder, alright, equals, so double equals true. So I'll just close these two here. So what this line effectively says, and this is all written on one line, but you could break it down like this. It's going to repeat whatever code is inside here. In this case it's just a wait that goes round and round and round, and each time it runs through once it checks the condition here until, and it says okay, let's get this attribute owns ladder, and if it's true we will go down and play the rest of or run the rest of the script. If it's not true, then it goes back up and repeats and goes round and round. Okay, so that is the entire script there. I'll just move this up a bit so that you can see everything and maybe zoom out a bit. Alright, so that's the whole script there, and we are ready to give this a test. So you can close your scripts that are open and come up and click on File and Save, and let's play. Alright, I'm all loaded in. So the first test that I'm going to do is not to buy the ladder, but run over and see if I can actually climb up the wall, okay? And you should not be able to run up that truss or climb the ladder. You can see it's packed down here, Alright, so the player cannot do anything until they come over and buy it. So let's now touch the shop part, and you should see your ladder grows right up to the top of the wall, and when I run over and run up here, I can climb up. Alright, and that should all be working just like that. So I really hope you find that useful, and it's a cool thing to sort of add into your game. And by all means, have a play around with Tweens, and they can do lots and lots of things, and they're a great thing to use in your projects. So I look forward to seeing you in future videos, and I'd really appreciate it if you would subscribe to my channel. Okay. If you found this video useful, subscribe now. For more information about my online courses, go to mrbrendanross.com.